Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Next Chapter. I am your host, Whitney Clark. If you love romance, you likely know Ashley Poston's books. She's the author of The 7-Year Slip, which came out a few years ago. It was in all of the book clubs. And she's out with a new book called A Novel Love Story. Ashley is a USA Today and New York Times best-selling author whose books can be described as cozy and magical. We love cozy and magical, a really fitting description also for her newest book. So Ashley, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and chat a little bit about romance books.
We love romance. It's definitely a genre that has changed so much over the years. Let's talk about A Novel Love Story. What can people expect? What really inspired you to write this one?
Well, I wrote a novel love story because I grew up loving romance novels, and after my first two romance novels, Dead Romantics and then 7-Year Slip, I knew I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I still wanted it to have this like magical quality to it. So I just looked at my bookshelf and I was like, what do I want to do next? And then I realized I wanted to live inside my favorite romance novels. And so I started thinking, well, what if that actually happened, and what are the pros and cons of actually like finding yourself in the town of your favorite romance series? um and so that's how Eileen finds herself in Oritan, New York. It's a paper town, it's not real, but it is to her. And so she has to navigate being in this fictional town and meeting these characters who have ferried her through heartbreak and through grief, and how that looks actually getting to like talk with them and exist with them, and what happens if she doesn't want to leave.
Tell us what she finds when she stumbles upon this fictional town. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What are some of the stores and the people that she meets as well?
Oh, she meets, first and foremost, she meets a grumpy bookstore owner named Anders, who she doesn't quite remember from the books, strangely enough. And she has a very good memory of this romance book series. And she also meets her favorite characters, who one owns like a bed and breakfast, and another one owns like a taffy and candy store. And of course, there's a bar that always has slightly burnt hamburgers, and there's a diner called the Grumpy Possum, but the possum is strangely missing right now.
Mm.
And so there's like a little mystery happening. And yeah, she just finds herself in the middle of a book series that never quite ended, because the last book never came out. And so she has to navigate these characters kind of stuck in this kind of frozen moment in time, and what happens when things start to move forward again.
We know that she's also part of a book club that she loves, that her best friend is part of as well. Have you ever been part of a book club that you've been really connected to?
Oh, absolutely. I had a book club in college, and we read just all kinds of novels. And right now I'm not in a book club right now, sadly, because I have to read so many things for my job. But I do have a reading buddy now who we
Oh.
read the same things, and it's like, oh, did you read that monster romance? Yeah, I read that monster romance. And it's so nice to at least like have like one, like a partner in crime that you
Mhm.
can like navigate stories with. And I always think that's one of the best parts about reading is one, you can read like alone, and you obviously go on like solo adventures into these novels, but it's always nice to have someone who's like you're like the Thelma to your Louise, and you're going in together.
Have you seen those TikTok videos where friends will get together and read for like a full 24 hours?
Yes, I just stumbled on those actually, and I was like, "Where was that when I was in college?" Like,
Yeah, as an adult, it would be a little bit harder to carve out 24 hours. Would your buddy reader be into something like that? Is it just a matter of like finding the time?
it is absolutely about finding the time. But you know what? I think my buddy reader might actually do it. She's the manager of a bookstore, and so
Oh,
maybe we might can spend the night in the bookstore. Just get some get some like sleepover material and just like lounge out in the romance section.
That's a goal, a sleepover in a bookstore. And it's funny you mentioned that because without giving too much away, we try to not give spoilers on this podcast as best that we can, but it does involve, I suppose, the dream of opening a bookstore. Why was it important for you to include sort of that in the story as well?
Well, not to give too much away. Mostly, so Eileen's story is about finding what she wants to do and who she wants to be, and like her entire life, she's kind of like gone with the flow and she's waited for stuff to happen to her. And she realizes over the course of the book that things don't just happen to you in real life. You have to go out and you have to chase down your dreams yourself. And so like I thought that opening up a bookstore or like having like a close tie to like a bookstore in the novel was something that I've always wanted to do, but I'm probably never going to actually open up my own bookstore. So I was definitely living vicariously through Anders the entire time, because like no spoilers, but there's a bookstore cat and he's the best. His name is Butterscotch.
And you have cats of your own. Were your own cats the inspiration for Butterscotch? Do they have any of the similar traits as Butterscotch?
Oh, 100%. I have so Butterscotch is a male cat and I have a male cat named Moose, and they are literally they share the exact same brain cell. It's one brain cell is competing for third place.
I love that. Cats are just the most special, unique creature. So any book that has a cat in it, I'm certainly going to love. So we love that representation. So thank you so much for including.
Of course. I mean, there's like you can't have a bookstore without a bookstore cat. I just like walked into like a bookstore in my area yesterday, searching for a rare novel that I've been trying to find for years, and I finally found it, which was
Oh,
great. But there was a black cat just wandering around, and I was like, oh, there's a bookstore cat here. Immediately, one of my favorite bookstores now.
what was the book that you were looking for?
It was a first edition of Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones.
Okay.
Um, it was published in 1986,
Wow.
and the first printing is either really hard to find or it's very, very expensive. So,
Mm.
so I was like trying to be like economical, but also I really, really, really wanted that book because that was the book that kind of like inspired me to chase my own dreams, and it's like my comfort read. I think everyone has a comfort read in a novel love story. Eileen's comfort reads are like the romance series that she finds herself kind of trapped in. So
What was your inspiration for that particular romance series? Do you have a romance series that you love as much as she loved that one?
ooh, yeah, I do. I really love Nora Roberts' contemporary small town romance series. Like you just can't go wrong. Um, and I also just like really love all of the small town TV shows like Gilmore Girls. Like there's a lot of Stars Hollow in Oritan, strangely enough. But yeah, so there's quite a few.
Aloriton just sounds like such a cozy place. I felt myself reading this just wanting to go there. I wanted to meet everyone. I wanted to go to the cafe. When you sit down, you begin the writing process. How do you begin to describe some of these places? Kind of run us through your process.
Oh, I definitely made a map this time. Usually I don't make a map of a town, but the thing is that Elorton is a character onto itself. And so I had to figure out like what is in this town and what I wanted the readers to get out of it and like how magical I wanted to make it. And so I took a road trip last summer kind of through the Rhinebeck area of New York, and I just like fell in love with all these like small towns, and also the fact that you can be like driving like through like just on a regular road, and then you're in the middle of nowhere and you can just take a road off the like highway and you're just lost. And I was like, well, what if you actually get lost? What if your GPS just decides to not play friendly. And that kind of started the like what if for me. It's like, oh, what if this happens? Or like what if this? So yeah, like Loritan's definitely my favorite parts of a lot of New England small towns that I kind of worked my way through.
So in the book, Elsie meets in this town where she stumbles upon, she meets Anders. And as you mentioned, this is a character that she didn't recognize from the books. I guess he's best described as a grumpy bookstore owner, but he also has minty green eyes. He has a certain smell to him, very much a charming character. And I will say he was definitely up there for me when it comes to book boyfriends. And you see a lot of people also on social media talking about book boyfriends. For you, when you write these book boyfriends, what are some of the characteristics that you think are really the most important?
Ooh, that's a good question. I try not to make like the love interests in every book the same. So I was like, okay, I had like, blue eyes for X or gray eyes for Y. I can't do that here. And then like most of the time I have to like ground it in some sort of reality, like with Ewan with 7 Year Slip, and then with Ben from the Dead Romantics. But for Anders, I felt a little like, because book boyfriends are this kind of like pie in the sky sort of like imagined partner, that I was like, okay, I can kind of literally do whatever I want to do. So what do I want this guy to look like? And so I thought back on um the kind of things that readers gravitated towards in like other romance books, and like what I gravitated towards. And I was like, well, grumpy sunshine, obviously. And like bright eyes, like some kind of strange color, so minty green. um and like what he did, okay, a bookstore owner that's kind of dreamy, and like, it's kind of a little bit mysterious too. uh and yeah, so I built him that way, because like I wanted him to embody a lot of like the wish fulfillment that I know I have a little bit of. So I was like, okay, I will do it this way. And Anders just came out of it. And then I had to obviously like layer on the, okay, he has to be also like a fully fleshed out human being as well. So I loved like taking this kind of like imagined perfect love interest, and then like corrupting him and turning him real. you know
How dare he be real? We just want our
right.
dreamy bookstore boyfriend, or wait, sorry, boyfriend who owns a bookstore. I mean, if you love books and you're coming up with your dream man, that's gonna probably be like a great characteristic for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And like this is a romance book about romance books. So he could not have had another job. Like that was it.
Well, there's of course the sort of traditional love story between Elsie and Anders. Again, without giving too much away, one of the other really important relationships in the book is between Elsie and her best friend Prue.
Mhm.
Why was it important for you to sort of highlight this female friendship, the power of female friendships, and how that really can change your life as a person in their 20s or 30s?
Well, I know that my female friendships have ferried me through so many things that my traditional relationships have not. And some of my best friends have been my best friends for like 20 years, and we've been with each other through so many parts of our lives. And to have like that kind of long-standing friendship, you don't just have them as friends. You have to reintroduce yourself to them every few years, like as you change and they change, and then you grow together, and you still like you still love each other, like they're your ride or die, right? So I wanted to explore that kind of change, and like what happens when your best friend does start another part of their life, and you feel like you are stuck back at level one, right? And you feel like they're moving on without you, and that fear is very real and very visceral, especially like in your late 20s and early 30s when your friends are getting married and having children and starting like different stages of their lives, and like their lives start to look differently than yours did, or that it did when y'all's friendship started. So I wanted to explore that, and how like love changes, and how you still just stick with them because they're still your ride or die.
I think that was one of the most relatable parts of the book to me as a woman in her mid 30s who's getting married but doesn't have kids. I have a lot of friends around me who are having children. We're all in these sort of different life phases. So I call myself kind of an in-betweener because I'm not 20 and single going out to bars on the weekend, but I'm also not sort of in the mom club. Have you sort of noticed those changes over the years as you've aged as well?
Oh, absolutely. Two of my best friends who we've been friends for like 23 years now. Uh, and they both are married. They have kids. They're starting a family. And I'm kind of like I'm not yet married, and I have three cats. And so it's a little bit different, but you find how you fit into their lives like a puzzle piece,
Mhm.
and how you fit into their lives changes as like their needs change and your needs change. And so yeah, I so the friendship between Elsie and Prue is kind of like me kind of talking myself through those changes and what that looks like. And so that was a conversation that I had with myself as I was writing it, and it was really lovely. And I love Elsie and Prue's relationship, and I love how it mirrors the relationship between me and my friends as well.
I love that so much. And it's so special to see your friends also move through these different life phases. I'm sort of the same way. I have some of the same friends I've had since high school, even before then, and we've all seen each other kind of through all the years and grow and change. And you could
Mhm.
not see each other for months or not talk for months, but then you kind of get back together and you pick everything up kind of like you have in the past.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about romance, just the genre in general. You mentioned you grew up really enjoying romance novels. What were some of the first books that you can remember reading that really stuck with you?
Oh gosh. The first books that I remember that really stuck with me were paranormal romances,
Hmm.
because I grew up like in the very early pre-Twilight phase, and then Twilight happened when I was in high school, and then the entire paranormal genre just took off. But before that, I was reading a lot of like Sherilyn Kenyon, Karen Moning, and like obviously Nora Roberts, and like her pen name JD Robb, Beverly Jenkins. And but most like my most formative reading years actually came from reading fan fiction,
Hmm.
from fanfic.net and other like GeoCities sites.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
so much of fanfic is romance or romance adjacent, whether it's like platonic romance or otherwise. And so I grew up like reading all of these stories and realizing that, oh, there's like so many different types of relationships and different ways that people connect with each other. And I find that so fascinating.
How have you seen romance change over the years? It seems like it's a genre that's really having a moment right now in terms of popularity, but it's also really changed and grown a lot from my perspective.
Oh, it's definitely come into the zeitgeist very quickly in the last few years because of TikTok mostly, I would assume. But romance has always been a really big selling genre. It's always been basically the most selling genre in publishing for for decades at this point. But no one really talked about it because it was women reading like, like mass market paperbacks. And so now we are seeing more like trade paperbacks of romances, and we're seeing them like at Target, and we're seeing them at Walmart, and they're being displayed like fantasy books or like women's fiction or literary books. And I also think a lot of like romance branches into the women's fiction genre as well. And I think that like that bridge is also helping bring more readers, like more mainstream readers to romance. And I think that's lovely.
I agree. Anytime someone can get into reading is always great. You mentioned TikTok. Are you a regular TikTok user?
Oh yeah, I definitely haunt TikTok. I don't post. I just kind of lurk in the background.
I love that because I'm sort of the same way. Posting is a little bit harder than it is to actually be watching some of these videos. Have you stumbled upon videos where people talk about your books or they recommend your books? What has that experience been like?
I have to say very proudly that I have trained my TikTok algorithm to not show me any of my books. uh, Mostly because I feel like that community is for readers, and I think that they need to have that space to talk and discuss my novels without me like looking over their shoulder. And I think it's very important to have that distinction. And also, I don't need a whole lot of people in my head all the time, like critiquing everything that I do. But I also really want to like protect um the reader community, and that like they are like safe to like love or hate or discuss any of my books, and it doesn't matter because after I finish a story, like I say in a novel love story, and like I kind of explore in a novel love story, it's no longer my book. It's now the reader's books, because like I told my story, and this story will forever be like my story as it is, but I can't change it anymore. And I can't and like I have already experienced it. And so now it belongs to the reader, and they can go on and they can make fanfic, and they can make, edits, and they can highlight it. And so it feels like sharing a part of myself with someone, and I have to protect that.
What is it like for you the day before a book release? Or what is it like for you, in the weeks before when the book is getting out to, podcasters like myself? It's on NetGalley. What is that feeling like?
Ooh, it's nerve-wracking. Um, it's also really exciting because I do get to share this story that I've worked on for who knows how long, finally with people. It's always really fun, and it's an adventure, and it also makes me really, really anxious. So I try not to think about it.
Going sort of back to TikTok and social media, overall, do you think the power of social media has been positive for the book world and for authors, or do you think there's been more sort of negatives?
Ooh, I don't think there's been positive or negatives. I think it's a net neutral. I think it's just a new way for readers to find and explore readers like books and new genres that maybe they didn't know of before, or maybe they'll find a new trope that they really love. But it's also been a lot more toxic to authors in general, because we are getting like inundated with like all of these opinions and all of these like critiques. And so I think it's really important and healthy to like to find a way to interact with social as an author that is both like mentally healthy for yourself, and also a net positive for your readers too. So I don't know. I think it's like everything else, it's a double-edged sword. I love that people are reading a lot more, and I hate getting tagged in bad reviews, but it's just part of the thing, and it's perfectly, I think on like a whole, it's perfectly lovely.
I agree. As someone that's been on the news for more than 10 years now, I don't like to read the comments. I try not to read the comments as much as I can
Oh
because
yeah.
for every positive, there's a negative. And you know what? It's those negative ones that really stick in your brain that you can't stop thinking about. So, definitely a little bit of a balance there, I think, is really important. Kind of going back to sort of your writing process with this particular book. Where do you do your writing? Do you have a place? Do you do it at home? Do you like to go to a coffee shop in public?
Ooh, I used to go to a coffee shop in public, but then I realized that I make faces
Oh.
when I write. So I can't frequent my local coffee shop anymore,
And
because of that.
cats are a lot less judgmental. They're not going to care what kind of face you're making.
No, no, they aren't gonna care. They only care if I like feed them and how many churros I feed them.
Absolutely.
It-
What are some of the tropes readers can expect in a novel love story, and what are some of your favorite tropes to read?
ooh, okay. So some of my favorite tropes are in a novel love story. It's like the grumpy sunshine dynamic. I really love forced proximity. Let's see here. I like magical towns, obviously, but I'm not sure if that's more of a trope or just me. um, I I love road trip tropes, and this is technically a road trip book. Um,
Would you say, I mean, I guess it's not really time travel, but it kind of is sort of similar to, I guess it's more like time suspension more than anything else, right? I guess is with that. How would you describe that portion of the book? Because it's not really time travel, it's traveling to a magical place.
Yeah, it's kind of like a portal fantasy
Okay.
almost, but it's a portal fantasy into a fantastical world that is like basically just like home, but just has, the characters that you cried over at 3 in the morning, the day like your ex-boyfriend dumped you and you had to find solace in something, and so you found it in a book, and so and so that's kind of how Oritan works. Time passes, but it passes the same every single day. Like a thunderstorm comes at noon and then in the afternoons, and the burgers are always burnt and the taffy always sticks to your molars. And there is something really soft and comforting about a place that never changes, a place that you can always go back to and sink into and not have to worry about anything too big changing. I think that's what Elsie needed to see. And then when Aloriton obviously starts to change because she becomes the outlier in this story, and so the story has to change. And then she kind of learns to that change is not always bad, and change is sometimes beautiful and good and exactly what you need in the moment.
Mhm.
And change in like in the ending of books isn't always sad. They can be happy too. And always in a romance novel there's a happily ever after that's kind of baked into the plot. So
And there is a happily ever after in this book without giving too much away. Unfortunately, we're running out of time here. Real quickly, I know the focus right now is a novel love story. It's out now. How soon will you start working on your next book if you haven't already?
oh, I have already. It's I know it comes out next summer. We're doing like a romance book a year summer sort of thing. So
Perfect.
definitely be looking out for new books for me every summer.
Okay. And have you ever been to Arizona? Any plans to come to Arizona if you do a press tour?
Oh, I have been to Arizona once before for a book tour a long, long time ago, but absolutely, I would love to come back.
Okay, you're welcome anytime. We have some really great bookstores. Well, we'll fill you in on all the best ones in the valley, and it's a dry heat, so
Ooh.
don't let the weather scare you.
Oh, perfect, because South Carolina heat is humid as like walking into a mouth, so I will
Yeah.
enjoy it.
It's more like a blow dryer here with the wind and the hot air, but always a good place to visit. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. This was so fun.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too.